what can, let's say in this case, the athletes do? Here the story eventually came out in this morning's Indian Express. There was outrage as a result of it, and Arvind Kejriwal's government acted. Obviously, the athletes felt done out of training in the stadium while an IAS officer was walking his dog in the stadium after 7 p.m. Now, it's not in every case that you can summon up this kind of media outrage and build pressure. What is the solution? You've been a former Chief Information Commissioner. What do you do when, let's say, an IAS officer, IPS officer, IRS officer uses his or her clout to, in a way, get unfair advantage, especially we find increasingly in these public spaces?
Sardar Patel thought he had ruled out the feudal influence on India. The kings were sent packing home. Now we've got new kings, people with power, money power, bureaucratic power or political power.
Mm-hmm.
All these kind of power, and this includes senior people in the judiciary also.
Mm-hmm.
All these people with power misuse their power to gain special considerations and do get away with special favors. The case that you mentioned of Mumbai is a very well-known case, and Mr. Dua may not be aware of it, but no IAS Officers Association stood up and said this is wrong. I think it is, I completely agree with Mr. Dua that not all IAS officers are similar. There are differences. But what is happening is the IAS Officers Associations act like trade unions, not representing the interests of the common man and India and democracy.
So you're saying the IAS officers should stand up whenever they see blatant abuse of power by their colleagues. Before I come to you, MN Singh, let Mr. Dua respond
also,
to that.
just 30 seconds,
Yes.
Rajdeep.
Yes, go ahead.
Also, whenever such instances come to the fore, officers must be suspended immediately, and those who acted with such illegal orders must also bear the brunt.
Okay. Mr. Dua, you want to respond, and then I'll go to MN Singh. The IAS Officers Association doesn't speak out when their own colleagues are involved in abuse of power. They act as a club. They act as almost a private club protecting their own. True or not, or is that an exaggeration?
I would go along with what Mr. Gandhi said. Mm-hmm. They probably come into the picture in order to defend the rights of the IAS officers or to demand, call it their legitimate or otherwise, what they want to do, but rarely do they kind of criticize what their fellow members have done. Having said that, I would go along with, just give me 30 seconds on that. Mr. Gandhi mentioned about misuse of power by VIPs. I think it's rampant. I just give you an example. I happen to be posted in the city of Pune, with which Rajdeep, you are probably very familiar, at a particular site where Ranji Trophy matches used to be held until the MCS Stadium came up, where the test matches are held. That was owned by the municipal corporation. On a particular politician, during the Pune festival, Ganesh festival, which is there, used to hold bullock cart races there. The moment I saw it, the very first day, I walked up to the track and I said, no more. That was the last race. Even the rest of the races are cancelled for the day. I wasn't very popular with that person in power or otherwise. Similarly, in another stadium, because we own two of them, a test cricketer of India had a shop which was overweighted in terms of area, etc. I had to tell very clearly, saying that shop will, the protruding portions have to be pulled down.
But will you tell off an IAS officer? The point is, will you tell off your own IAS officers? You're telling out politicians when they abuse power. You're telling off a cricketer who you said was using. What about your own fellow IAS officers? Who will call out an IAS officer when he or she abuses his or her power?
I'm absolutely one with you on that. Anybody misusing his power, the VIP culture days are over. The law of the land has to be followed, and the people who've been associated with formulating of the rules and the regulations, they have to be particularly more careful and make sure that they not only do the right thing, but they are seen to be doing the right thing as well. Okay. And that applies to every bureaucrat, irrespective of the service he or she belongs to.